Today, Swiss police arrested two more high-ranking officials suspected of taking millions of dollars in bribes.
On suspicion of accepting bribes worth millions of dollars.
It's the largest corruption scandal in the history of football's world governing body, FIFA.
Charges detailing rampant, systematic and deep-rooted corruption at world football's governing body.
Charges include racketeering, conspiracy and corruption.
7 senior FIFA officials arrested at the crack of dawn.
The charges include racketeering, money laundering and wire fraud.
They corrupted the business of worldwide soccer to serve their interests and to enrich themselves.
This is a story about how Qatar, a tiny country in the Middle East, was chosen to host the most watched sports event in the world. How did this come to be? There's more to it than meets the eye. The World Cup started out in 1930 in Uruguay, with only 13 teams participating. In time, it grew to become a global celebration of culture, unity, and sports. Nowadays, it's by far the most watched sporting event on the planet, with the 2018 final between France and Croatia attracting 1.1 billion viewers. That's over 14% of the world population watching one event at the same time. With the tournament generating that level of attention, it's no surprise that countries are willing to spend significant sums of money to host it. As a perfect example, Qatar reportedly spent between $220 and $300 million on the 2022 World Cup. So why would Qatar want to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to host the World Cup? Well, in order to answer that, we need to take a look at Qatar and its history. For most of Qatar's history, it was populated by nomadic tribes, but that changed when Britain arrived during the Industrial Revolution, as Qatar was very rich in oil. It became a British protectorate for a while, and only gained independence in 1971. Importantly, the nation still had a vast supply of oil and natural gas in reserve. This abundance of oil quickly made Qatar one of the major players in the global resource market. They did, however, realize that their reliance on oil and natural gas for money was unsustainable. So, they came up with a new direction for their economy, a way to ensure greater long-term stability. This plan included Qatar diversifying its economy by becoming a global hub for major international events. It's now easy to see why Qatar planned to host the World Cup, but winning the bid presented a new challenge. They had no infrastructure and no significant sports history, so instead, they had to rely on something they did have and that would attract FIFA to prefer them: money. If you are enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. You'll get more content like this and it helps the channel out a lot. Now, in order for a country to get chosen to host the World Cup, it needs to obtain a majority vote by the FIFA Executive Committee, made up of 24 executives. This means you only need 13 votes to win the bid. This is how Qatar did it. This is Mohammed bin Hammam, one of the 24 executives, and he is Qatari. It's obvious he voted for his own country, but behind the scenes, he was crucial in helping to get the other executives to vote for Qatar. First, let's go over the simple deals, the bribes. Leaked bank transactions and emails from the Sunday Times show that Mohammed bin Hammam, the Qatari FIFA executive, had deposited a total of $1.6 million into Jack Warner's accounts. A clear bribe. They allegedly received bribes in exchange for their votes for Qatar to host the World Cup, which is why the US Department of Justice is now building a case against them. A year before the vote, the executives from the African Confederation had an annual meeting, which was paid for by the Qatar bid team. On top of that, during the meeting, the Qatar bid team offered each of the 3 FIFA executives $1.5 million for a vote for Qatar. This information came from a translator in the room. A year later, this employee retracted her statement, claiming that she was lying, But once the FBI interviewed her, she gave in that she was forced by the executives to say that she was lying. Moreover, one of the executives, Amos Adamu, as well as the Oceanian executive, Reynold Tamari, were filmed negotiating a bribe by undercover reporters, which led them to be disqualified from voting, meaning Qatar had lost the vote from these two executives. 4 months before the vote, Thailand was attempting to negotiate a better deal for energy with Qatar. At the negotiation meeting, Warawi Makudi, a Thai FIFA executive, was there, which at first glance seems odd, but he was there because he could provide Qatar with something they wanted: a vote. So in exchange for cheaper natural gas rates, Makudi would vote for Qatar. And the nail in the coffin is that this meeting was organized by none other than Mohammed bin Hammam, the Qatari FIFA executive. The list of bribes and backdoor deals goes on and on. One executive had his son offered a job to work at a Qatari private hospital. Another sold his land to Qatar well over the market value. But the most important factor in deciding the winner of this 2022 World Cup bid was what happened with the president of the UEFA committee, one of the most powerful people in the FIFA executive committee, Michel Platini. 1 week before the vote, he was invited to have lunch with the president of France, and present at the lunch were two of the most powerful men in the Middle East, both the Prime Minister and the current Emir of Qatar. The French president told Platini to vote for Qatar, and in exchange, Qatar would firstly buy PSG, the president's favorite football team, as well as help France economically by, for example, having Qatar Airways purchase aircraft from the French aircraft manufacturer Airbus. It's almost certain that after Platini was made to vote for Qatar, he influenced others to vote in favor of Qatar, providing them with the majority vote they were seeking. The reason why this is so important and significant is that football is a way of uniting the people of the world under a universal love of the game. Football wasn't always like this, filled with corruption, and it stood for a way for people around the world, no matter what religion, language, or customs, to share the same excitement for a global celebration. But now that bribing seems to be so attached to this massive sport, it almost seems like a message of confirmation to everyone that nothing extends beyond the influence of money, not even something as culturally ingrained in our lives as football. The rules don't matter, as everyone has their price and you only need the money to match it.